Hi, everyone. This is Nicky Verd from South Africa.
Hi everyone, this is Assaf Luxembourg from Israel.
And in this video, we want to encapsulate and capture some of the discussions that me and Nikki had when I met her, when I met you, Nikki, in South Africa. So this is a short video, probably going to be wrapped with a certain blog post, which will cover a little bit more. So if you're watching this, there's the blog post. And if you're reading this, then watch this video.
Absolutely. Yes, we met here in South Africa in March, right before Corona. And so the world has completely flipped since then.
Right. So, Nikki, for those of you who don't know who you are, why don't you say 2, 3 words about who you are and what you do?
I am Nicky Verd. I am the author of the book titled Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. And the whole
Which
idea
is
is that
which is right behind you, right?
yes, it's right behind me
Or
on my
this thing
banner.
right here.
Yes, Asaf has a copy
Right.
actually. And so, yes, the whole idea in the book is for people to look at where the world is going right now, what is happening in the world, look at the trends, and begin to ask themselves the hard questions like, is the industry in which I am now still going to be relevant in the next 5 years? Is the certificates I'm doing now still going to be relevant in the next 2 years? And if it's not, then you start disrupting yourself. You start moving out. You start going to try something else, you do something that is more relevant. And so that is basically the whole idea about disrupting yourself. You don't wait for the crisis to be breathing down your neck. You do it while you're still sober, and so you can know what are the next steps and what next you should do with your life or with your business.
And just to put things into context, this video is being recorded towards the end of May. We met in South Africa at the beginning of March, and the book was written when?
I started writing in 2017, but it was published last year, 2019.
All right. Okay.
And so for those who do not know you, Asaf, you can give a brief introduction about yourself. One of the concepts when you were here in South Africa that totally blew my mind was the concept of the business unit. If you can, give us a little bit about that.
Right, so I'm not going to introduce myself in a very long way. It's pretty much online for those of you who are interested. My name is Assaf Luxembourg. I'm from Israel. I came to South Africa at the beginning of March, thanks to my partner and friend and colleague, Dan Brotman of Ennovate. We should receive the respect here. So Dan, this one's for you. And we met at the event at WeWork, I think, but there were a lot of events during that week, which we held, and all of them were around the same topic, which was the new world of work, what is probably going to happen, and how to get ready for it. And I shared my perspective, which is related to what I'm doing, and I'm putting that aside. And that perspective is that in today's world of work, you, Nikki, and me, Assaf, and all of you who are watching, we are all business units. That's what the internet is doing to us, meaning we should think and act in today's world as if we are the CEO and owner of Us Incorporated. That's true if you're entrepreneurs. That's true if we're founders and owners of businesses. That's true if we're freelancers. But my claim is that it's also true if we are employees in the office. So it's true anywhere and everywhere. And there are a lot of implications for that idea. And I came to South Africa and share many of them. And that's where we met.
Awesome. That's great.
So I kind of want to ask you, so you wrote this book in 2017, came out last year. We met in March, and then the world flipped over with Corona. And in a way, I guess you would agree, Corona basically is speeding up processes which we both agree are happening.
Yep.
So how do you see things from your side? What has changed since we met in March and to this day?
If I can go back on the book, at the time when I released the book, which was just last year, a whole lot of people that read the book felt like, some people actually challenged me and said, no, this stuff you're talking about is for the West, it's not for Africa. we are not there yet. We are still very much in the third industrial revolution. And so some of the things we're writing, we feel like Africa is not ready for the fourth industrial revolution. And so those are some of the challenges and some of the opinions that people had out there. And then fast forward 8 months later, the world completely shifted, everything completely flipped, and the most traditional companies right here in Africa embraced digitization in a matter of weeks when lockdown happened. They put a whole lot of processes online. They allowed their employees to do remote work, which is something unheard of for many companies here in Africa, especially in South Africa. And so that is one of the big changes that is happening. I know that in other parts of the world, remote work it's had been happening even before COVID-19, but not here in South Africa. So that's one of the big changes that are happening. The fast rate at which organizations have embraced digitization and allowing employees to work from home.
So just to delay on South Africa for a second, for those of you who are watching and are connected to South Africa or are from South Africa, so when I came to visit you guys at the beginning of March, I remember two specific ideas that came up. Number one is that South Africa is kind of isolated as an island, and it's a medium-sized island. You're not like Australia island, continent, and you're not Israel island economically, meaning you have to be export-oriented. And the idea was you can't really make it as a medium-sized island. You have to either think big and you become a domestic market, or you have to think small, which is where I'm from, Israel, and think export and global from day one. That's one idea that I remember talking about with a lot of people. And another idea was that at the end of the day, when you look at South Africa, without getting into the bits and bytes of the economic situation, if you look at it from a grander scheme of things, we're talking about an English-based country, which is in a very interesting time zone with respect to Europe and the US and Asia. So you're in the middle, you're in European time zone, and you live with your local currency, which is the rand, which makes it very attractive, if possible, to sell services from South Africa, sell in dollars and live in rand. So we were talking about the on-demand economy, and we said, this is an advantage. Do you think those two ideas about the island and your positioning as a market are still relevant in today's world with Corona?
I really do not think so, because Corona is changing a whole lot of dynamics, and so many people are losing jobs. So even on the idea of exporting certain services or things like that, it's not, maybe at the moment, it's not a viable thing to do, because the country is looking at how do we solve the problem of unemployment right now? How do we assist people that are losing their jobs? And how do we assist people that are unable to feed themselves because of coronavirus? So at the moment, I think the focus is more on coronavirus, or on fighting COVID-19 and keeping people safe and healthy, than really looking into, exporting services and things like that. I mean, so from where I sit, that is my opinion.
So you're saying basically, Assaf, it's true generally, but not right now. That's not where.
Not right now. Yes, I feel
Gotcha.
so. And yeah, so speaking of Israel, I would like to ask you, like, the rest of the world knows Israel as a startup nation in terms of entrepreneurship, and venture capital, agriculture. You guys have some of the most innovative systems, And so what can you tell us about that?
Right. So look, we can talk about the tech industry in Israel and startups and what's happening right now. Not everything is, Israel was affected by Corona. It's not that we were unaffected by it. But I think if we zoom out and look at the grander the perspective here, that's where I would like to put the focus on. So if you look at Israel, broadly speaking, up until the late 80s, early 90s, Israel was known in ways in the economic world as an agricultural success story. Edge of the desert, making the desert green, agricultural innovation, but agriculture. If you look at, late 90s to, somewhere around 2012, then Israel became very known in terms of tech and an advancing economy to people who were in tech. And ever since the book Startup Nation came out, Israel was really, you know, the reality changed the perception of the world on Israel to be very focused on everything you said, startups, innovation, entrepreneurship. So that's part of the process that the brand of Israel have gone through the years with respect to economics. So I will say this. The message is not that, you know, we need to copy paste from Israel with respect to tech and innovation and startups. I think the message is a little bit deeper here. And it's interesting, you know, you're from South Africa, and it's something we discussed too. So I'll say this with respect to South Africa, but it's true for every country. You, South Africa, you could say that your DNA is all about Rainbow Nation and overcoming apartheid, which are big, big things. But if you look into 50 years into the future, they will probably be irrelevant, and they'll be mostly historical. Israel could or should or would or whatever you want, could have been all about the history. I mean, we're talking about a people who, you know, have the stories of the Bible as their heritage, you know, wandered around in exile for 2,000 years, came back to their homeland, and, you know, there's the Holocaust in terms of recent history and all that. So imagine coming to people and telling them that this will be relevant in 50 years. It's very hard to hear. But that's part of the truth. So I believe nations, economies, but also companies and people should reflect and say, okay, my history is who I am, but I am not constrained by my history. I can make my history work for me and for who I can be in the future. So that's true with respect to South Africa, and I remember us talking about it, but I believe it's true for every country. And COVID-19 will speed up the process of organizations and economies and cultures and communities thinking about how do we retell our story in a way that is relevant to the future, not just the past.
Absolutely. However, it doesn't mean that there are no challenges, right? And people are not feeling the heat in this moment.
Right. Look, in a way we could say, you know, I'm Jewish. I was born 1984. I was born in Israel, and I was not born to a family with a huge economic debt. I basically won the lottery. So I'm going to, you know, come forward and, you know, if it's okay, I could say, look, you're a Black woman, you live in South Africa, and you live in South Africa today and not 200 years ago or 50 years ago. Someone could say, Nicky, you won the lottery. But it doesn't mean that there are no difficulties right now. So to weigh both things. I totally agree with you.
Absolutely. And I think that our forefathers have been through some of the worst things, you know, maybe worse than what we're currently experiencing right now. And they came through. And so I think that as much as a lot of people are sitting on pins and needles, we should probably borrow from history on how people survived, you know, many of the crises that they have survived, how our forefathers went through war, especially in Africa, where it was known as the Dark Continent, you know, according to the economists, because of how much war was plaguing the continent. And most of that has been overcome. And so I think that coronavirus just is not here forever. It's not here to stay. It's not here to, you know, completely disrupt our lives beyond repair. We are going to get through this.
I couldn't agree more. And look, you mentioned your book, which is, of course, the reference for this talk. I'll just mention, you know, what I shared. I hope you can see my screen. I mean, this blog post, which is online, you can find it. This one's from LinkedIn. Don't miss your Corona crisis opportunity. Alongside history, people were in much harder situations than us, and they found opportunity in those situations. And it's not that we can't complain because we won the lottery. It's we need to look for the opportunities, and there are opportunities in these situations. So, you know, maybe this could help a lot of people. There are a lot of references to videos on that blog post, so feel free to watch them if you're watching this and you're interested. But that's the main message. It doesn't mean that those opportunities are easy to pick and do. It's hard and difficult, but it's possible.
Absolutely. If I could add something on what you've just said, because it's really true. They are not easy to see. But for people that are looking, I did a YouTube video 2 days ago, and I actually touched on this. Because a lot of people are looking at the government to solve their problem, their entire problems during this crisis. A lot of people are looking at maybe charitable organizations or NGOs, or people that are raising these millions and billions we are hearing on the news to help the poor. And for some people, their only strategy to survive through this crisis is to sit back and wish that one of these organizations notice them and send a chunk of money into their bank account, which eventually might not happen. And so the only real strategy that can actually help someone survive this, it is your own personal strategy. What are you doing? What are you looking for? What are you thinking? Are you sitting down and having a conversation with yourself? Because unless you are looking, you will not find the opportunities. But if you're identifying the government as your only opportunity, then you will get stuck in that kind of thinking. But if you can sit down to have a conversation with yourself and really look deep, what is happening now, where to next, you can find something. But for people who are identifying the government and all of these NGOs and these campaigns that are raising money, and they are just identifying themselves and saying, you know what, I'm one of those poor people. Hello, can you find me here? I'm here, send money to me. I think that is just a strategy for failure if people are looking outside of themselves for help.
Nikki, I couldn't agree more. My grandparents and their generation, in my people, had all the reasons in the world to sit back and say, you, humanity, you screwed us, now fix this for us,
Absolutely.
Help us fix this for us. But they didn't. They rose up and, they founded a country, a nation.
Absolutely.
So I couldn't agree with you more. Again, look, who am I to judge someone? I don't know the circumstances. I really don't.
Yeah.
I can say is from the business unit perspective, what you described right now is what I call a consumer mindset. In today's world, developed countries and undeveloped countries, people are taught to think like consumers. You're not happy, buy something. You don't like your job, get a new job. Look for solutions outside. I hate my boss. I hate my company. I don't like this. I don't like that. It should be fixed for me. I want a job where I will be happy and meaningful and achieve, my purpose and my goals, and I'll make an impact, and me, and what I want. It's a mindset. And the whole idea of the business unit is to get out of the matrix and into the real world where you need to make those things for you. And it can only be done if you take ownership, which is why I think you need to look at yourself as the business unit. I don't mean that you need to think of yourself as a business in terms of P&L and profit loss and decisions. It's to
I hear you.
Yourself as a productive unit that should produce value to the world and be relevant.
Absolutely. Which brings me again back to the whole topic of the book, disrupt yourself or be disrupted. Because if you are not doing something to change your situation, someone is going to disrupt your life, because there's no neutral ground. You cannot sit and hope that this thing is going to disappear overnight. You can't bury your head in the sand and hope that by the time you plug it out, everything is fine, it's all over. No, there is really no neutral ground.
In one of the posts I wrote online, and I think it's mentioned in the post I've shown too, think of the Exodus story. Moses came to Pharaoh.
I remember. I saw that.
Let my people. Yes. So Moses came to Pharaoh in the story and told him, let my people go. That's entrepreneurship, proactive leadership, whatever. But in today's world, if you don't do that, Pharaoh will come to you and tell you, listen, I don't need you in Egypt building pyramids full-time basis. Go to the desert. When I need your services, I'll call you. And now you're in the desert. You didn't want to. So same idea, different analogies, but I couldn't agree. But to take this conversation to the next part, let's talk about more pragmatic advices. What would you say, give a piece of advice for those who are watching this, sitting at home, they lost their job, or they were caught up in the storm. What should they do now?
A great question. I actually had a virtual meeting with some guys in Uganda last week, and this was one of the questions that was being asked. What are the practical things we can do to be able to to have a footprint, some sort of footprint online, since everything is going digital. And so when we talk about things going digital, there are a lot of people who have never really used the website, or who have, their businesses never had a website. They only had a particular location in their community where they're doing business. And now with lockdown, they're forced to be at home, and they have no clue where to start getting that particular business online. And so one of the most basic practical solutions that I gave was, okay, if the website idea seems overwhelming for you, start with a platform like social media. A lot of us are on Facebook, a lot of us are on Instagram, but many people are using that wrongly. Many people are just there to watch what other people are doing, or to watch how lives for other people are unfolding. Whether you're on Instagram,
many people are there thinking like consumers.
Absolutely, they're just there to consume. And so one of the basic advice that I gave was like, you know what, be different, take that business online. Let your audience, if you have 5 people on Facebook, if you have 10 people on Facebook, if you have 2,500, 1,000, however following you have, let them know what is it that you do, the kind of service you're offering, and the kind of industry in which you are. And how do you do this? Start by providing value, because the world has changed. Consumers are smart. They want to be able to understand what this product can do for them before they will even buy. You don't just take the products and throw it in their faces. No, provide some sort of value for what you are doing. And one of the basic examples I gave was someone who is a mechanic, right? Fixing cars. Go online, give tips to people on how to DIY certain things with their cars, how to change oil, maybe how to change a tire. Just give certain basic things that people can do by themselves. And when maybe a car can have a big a problem, you will be the first person they would think about. They will remember, oh, this particular person online who's always giving car advice. Let me find out if this person can sort out my car, because this particular issue, I cannot DIY it myself. Another example I gave, you're selling maybe baby clothing, or you're selling diapers. Provide some sort of tips on advice on new mothers, and how to take care of babies, and how to, help babies to sleep better, or take care of newborns. Right. Just providing that kind of advice. Once in a while, putting in a little bit here and there, what is it that you're selling? And so when people get used to you sharing that kind of content online, when it happens that they are looking for someone who is selling diapers online, you will be the first person they will go to, because you have provided them value before. You had given them a tip that helped them with their new baby. You've given them a tip that helped maybe a pregnant woman who didn't know what to do. You will be the first person for them to remember to come buy things from. And so that's one of the ways of selling online, or starting on a free platform, which you don't necessarily have to spend money. But the sad part is that many people will rather post their breakfast online. What is it they ate for breakfast this morning? It doesn't give any value to anyone following you when you're doing that. Many people would rather post their Gucci, whatever they bought from brands that they or their cars. It doesn't really give any value to who is following you. Post about your services and provide some sort of value to your audience. That is the basics of finding your
online. And I would add, thinking like a business unit, there are 2 extreme, points here. Number one, you need to think about, what do you want to do and to who? Meaning, who do I want to serve as a business unit, and what do I want to do for them? This is an internal process, just like any company writes its own strategic plan, the business plan.
Yes.
So that's one part. But the other part is looking out there and seeing who needs help with what can I do and to who that they need, even if it's not necessarily what I want. And the holy grail here is to connect those 2 things and find that shared zone in the middle. And it could be a certain thing, it could be a mixture of a few things, but that's the way to get going. I couldn't agree more. Nikki, thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for watching. Go and read this book, which is available on Amazon or anywhere, right? Just Google the name, I guess.
Yes, if you just Google Nicky Verd, you will find me, you will find my books, you will find any information you need about me.
So Nicky Verd, Disrupt Yourself or Be Disrupted. And if you find any value with the business unit idea, I highly advise you to check out this blog post, which is right here. It contains at least my perspective, specifically with regards to Corona. And there are a lot of videos here from recent webinars that I did, so short Q&A clips. If that helps anybody here, then I've done mine. So Nicky, thank you so much for jumping in on this call, which is video part of this blog post, which is probably here. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you for having me, Assaf. It's been
Bye-bye.
great.